What's up, this is Jake with Hike 734, hiking with my wife Kristen, and today we're doing the Static Peak Divide, and well, we were right below the peak, so we just decided to throw Static Peak in there as well. And anyways, we started out over at the Death Canyon trailhead, and worked our way up to Phelps Lake Overlook, and then climbed up into the canyon to the patrol cabin. And then from there, we worked our way up, all the way over to Static Peak Divide, and then scrambled on up to Static Peak itself. So anyways, the road leading up to it is really rocky and crappy, so if you don't have a high clearance vehicle, you might have to add a mile to each end of this. But anyways, the trail just kind of starts out in just a nice, pleasant forest as you're working your way up the wooded moraine that is the east boundary of Phelps Lake. And as you climb up that, it goes from that pleasant forest to opening up, getting some fun views of Albright Peak and Prospector's Mountain. And yeah, it's just really just a nice little walk there as you're going up the creek, and you gradually climb up to the top of that moraine. And man, the overlook, especially in the morning of Phelps Lake, is fantastic. So pretty. Like, Phelps Lake is just really pretty, and in the morning it was nice and calm for us. And from the overlook, you start working your way down a couple of switchbacks through these avalanche chutes, and you get a couple more views of Phelps Lake, and looking into the avalanche areas, and there's some big trees there and some aspens, and you just kind of bounce in and out between trees and open areas, and it's just, yeah, just a cool area. And you start to get closer to the super tall walls of Death Canyon, just these sheer cliff walls, and yeah, just a beautiful tight canyon. Finally, you get to the trail junction, which is really close to the creek itself, and you start working your way up. It's an unnamed creek, and but it is beautiful, and you just kind of start working up through more of that, alternating between boulder fields and just really cool views. And we're doing this at the beginning of September, so the plants are changing, so some of the colors are just mind-blowing and really awesome. We're just kept saying wow a lot. And anyways, as you're just going up, you start switchbacking, and you leave the creek for a while, and you just start going through just really great rock formations, and just once again kind of doing some more of that alternating between trees and these big chutes and stuff. And finally you start to see the creek again, and this time it's cascading over boulders, and it's just really pretty with these just huge granite boulders. And you eventually come really close to it, and then you just start following it up. And this section, as you switch back, is really pretty as far as the creek goes. And once again, nice colors on both sides of the creek, still these tall, amazing walls, and you keep climbing. And then finally the trail ends up coming up into the canyon, where the creek all of a sudden gets really slow, and it becomes dense trees. The trail just almost immediately levels out, and you just kind of traverse through that for just a pretty short section, and then you get to the patrol cabin. And if you are, you can just stop here. This is a great place to stop, or just kind of work your way further up the canyon as a shorter day where you don't want to go crazy. But also at this patrol cabin is where we went ahead and we turned up, and we started working our way up towards Static Peak Divide. And the trail just dips into the trees and then opens up into some aspens and then some open meadows. And it just, that's kind of the story of a lot of today, especially in this canyon, is just that alternating between just the open grassy, the trees, and some aspens. And then, but the cool thing is, as you get higher up, like I say in all my videos, the higher up you get, the views start to get better. The views up from the trail are really cool with this sharp, rugged ridgeline that you see. And you just know that you're going to be going right along those guys. Well, right next to them anyway. But yeah, it just starts to work its way, traversing, after some switchbacks, it traverses all the way around the inside of this drainage. And once again, just really cool views all the way up. And you can even see like Fossil Mountain and Bannock Peak. I think it's Bannock Peak. And yeah, just really cool. Prospector's Mountain is just right in front of you. And finally, you get to a couple of cool overlooks, and you get up into the Whitebark Pine. And yeah, just starting to get, as you can see, that it changes into more of the alpine, just kind of cool terrain up there. you finally get to a cool overlook, and then you go through a bunch of these little tiny switchbacks, and you switch back a bunch of times in a short amount of time, and you've climbed a couple thousand feet at this point. And then finally you come to a really cool overlook that looks east, as you've been looking mostly west for this day. And it's Phelps Lake and Jackson Hole, and just really cool wide open vantage. And for us, it was a little chilly on the west face in the morning, but then that east face was a nice respite into the sunshine. So after a little break, we went ahead and traversed back on the east side of the ridge line there, and it's nice because it's a little level section. There's this really cool section that has rose quartz that's beautiful, and anyways, that stays level for a little bit, and then there's a couple switchbacks, and you come to this saddle just next to Albright Peak, and we thought initially that might be Static Peak Divide, but we weren't sure. And normally around here in the Tetons, they have a pretty good system for designated trail signs for designated spots like Phelps Lake Overlook and Static Peak Divide. So we decided to continue on up and see what happens. So from there, it actually gets pretty steep. You start working your way switchbacking like crazy along the ridge to get up to Static Peak Divide, and the views are just great. You can start to see there's a little lake right nestled towards the top of Prospector's Mountain, and there's just great views looking down towards Jackson Hole, and then of course up Death Canyon, and just along the ridge looking up towards Static Peak, which is right in front of you. It's kind of an unassuming little mountain there, but it's really sweet. Anyway, so we just worked our way up that, and that's that really jagged, rocky stuff that you saw from down below. And so anyways, after a little bit of working our way up there, we finally got to the marker that said Static Peak Divide. And so we were stoked about that, but we were so close to Static Peak, we decided, you know what, let's just scramble up to the top of it. So we went ahead and did that and worked our way up. There's right after the first switchback, there's a pretty obvious climber's trail, and so we stuck to that and worked our way on up and got to the top. And the views from the top of Static Peak are fantastic. That's why we summit. That's why we do these little extra effort scrambles. You just get really cool views. There's a lake below called Timberline Lake, and you can see the Grand Teton, and Buck Mountain is right in front of you, and yeah, just looking all over the place. So anyways, you know, if you're going up to Static Peak Divide, you might want to consider adding Static Peak if you got the energy. But overall, really cool hike. Really love Death Canyon, especially just going up through that section with just the colors today. And of course, it's going to be really lots of flowers earlier in the season, and you know, just the cascading water. And then just, you know, if all you want to do is come up to the patrol cabin and then maybe just explore the canyon, there's definitely quite a few people doing that today. And then of course, Static Peak Divide, lots of vertical. It's over 5,000 feet if you go to the divide and back down. So anyways, big days, good days. Add the peak if you want to, because it's awesome. Anyways, this is Jake with Hike 734, hiking with my wife Kristen, doing Static Peak Divide in Death Canyon, and actually Static Peak 2 in Grand Teton National Park. Oh, and there's a fly on my monk's hood. There we go. The bee just went in and scared off the fly. He disappeared in the monk's hood.
If you like this video, make sure you subscribe on YouTube and head on over to hike734.com for more goodness.